Presumptive #1 overall pick Caleb Williams is not working out at the Combine, and he's not doing medical exams. He's believed to be the first prospect to ever attend the Combine without partaking in medical examinations. However, he told reporters on Friday that he does plan on doing medical testing with the teams that he meets with during pre-draft visits.
For the medical stuff, I'll be doing the medical stuff, just not here in Indy. I'll be doing it at the team interviews. Not 32 teams can draft me. There's only one of me. And so the teams that I go to for my visit, those teams will have the medical, and that'll be it. I don't think I'm not going to be #1. I think I put in all the hard work, all of the time, effort, energy into being that. I don't think of a plan B. That's kind of how I do things in my life. I don't think of a plan B, stay on plan A, and then when things don't work out, find a way to make plan A work.
All right, let's get right to the site. Welcoming former NFL GM Rick Spielman and CBS Sports NFL draft analyst Ryan Wilson, who join us from the Combine in Indy. Rick, as a former executive, what do you make of Caleb Williams' decision to skip medical testing at the Combine?
Yeah, to me it's a little bit disturbing. I understand he's probably going to be the first overall pick, and you're going to ask yourself, well, why do I have to go to the Kansas City Chiefs medical? The point of this Combine and why it was put together was to everybody that comes get a medical exam, because you never know, what if 3 or 4 years down the road someone trades for him? I don't know what's going to happen with him, but hopefully this was a one-off and not a precedent as we go forward.
Ryan, how are teams viewing Caleb's decision to opt out of the medical testing?
Well, Akeem, the old school front office types, raise your hand, Rick, are not happy about it. But Rick sort of hinted at the punchline there. This was set up for NFL teams to gather the information, not necessarily set up for the players to have any say in how things work. But Rick has also made the point that when you're the best player in the draft, you have those opportunities. Marvin Harrison Jr. went home. We were supposed to talk to him earlier today, and he said, I don't need to talk to you effectively, and I get that. I know that ruffles Rick's feathers and some other front office executives at times, but at the end of the day, we know who those guys are based on the tape. And I asked Rick this earlier, Akeem, and I'll ask him again. If you're the Bears, are you taking Caleb at #1?
If he passes his physical.
If you're the Cardinals at 4, are you taking Marvin Harrison Jr.?
If he passes his physical, and I want to see him talk in front of the media.
That means, yes, Akeem, he's taking both those players to those spots because those are desperate needs for both teams.
Yeah, it seems as if that now the players are having a little bit more power at the Combine. We've seen that sort of shift. And like you said, if you're going to be the presumptive #1 overall pick, or you're going to go in the top 5, you've got a little bit more say-so because of the talent that you have, but certainly not ideal for the teams, like Rick mentioned, that may be trading for these players down the road that would like to have some sense of the player's past. Speaking about Williams' past, he won the Heisman Trophy during his sophomore season, but he and USC didn't have similar success this past season, losing 5 of their final 6 regular season games, including a loss to Notre Dame when he tossed 3 interceptions. Williams sat down with Rick and Ryan on Friday and had this to say about the challenging season.
Take something from this whole year, this whole past year. It was the closest I've ever been to losing a losing season, the closest I've ever been to a neutral season. And so I've taken a lot from this year. At one point, losing is really tough for me. So at one point, Lincoln sat me down because he knows it beats me up pretty bad. And so, he sat me down, and his saying was, either you learn from this and you grow and go and reach what you can reach, or you keep feeling the same feeling and you go throughout the rest of the season feeling like this.
Rick, you've watched plenty of tape on Caleb Williams. After talking with him on Friday, what are your impressions of the USC QB?
To be honest with you, I was taken back on how humble he was, how articulate he was, and it didn't come across as like some kind of superstar or diva, I should say, as a lot of people may portray on the outside. But very humble. I think he's very hungry to succeed in the NFL, and I was very impressed with the interview we had with him on stage here tonight.
And Akeem, at the beginning of the interview, Rick and Caleb shared a love of ginger beer. They both chugged a ginger beer, and he seemed legitimately excited to have that opportunity. I'm sure he's tired already of talking to people. He had to answer some tough questions when he took the podium behind us earlier. And to Rick's point, and we talked about this with C.J. Stroud last year, it felt like you got to know him a little better, and you got the sense that he was invested not only in football, but in proving to people that he is more than just potentially the best player in this draft class. I would imagine, and we don't know yet, maybe you know from talking to people, that he probably came across pretty well in the interviews, but there was nothing that was a red flag for me based on what we saw with him today.
Yeah, and the only red flag that's coming across here, and just to go back to a previous point we made, is that when he elects who he's going to do medical with, or Marvin Harrison Jr. says, I'm not going to do media, from a general manager standpoint, that tells me it's more about the individual than about the team. So what's going to happen, and he doesn't want to do media if he has a bad game in the NFL, or he doesn't want to do this, but all his teammates have to do that. So that'll be some things that I heard from some other general managers that they will be concerned about.
Rick, you've taken us behind the curtain a bit here as a former NFL GM. Let me take you behind the curtain here in TV a little bit. My evaluation process is I will listen to somebody, I will pay attention to somebody if that's somebody I want to have a beer with. So that goes to say that I want to have a beer with both of you, and now I know that you like ginger beer, so the next time you're up here, we'll knock a few back, because, you know, why would you want to listen to somebody talk about sports if you don't feel like you can sit and have a beer with them? That's sort of my measuring test as an evaluator of TV talent. Caleb Williams, off the charts talent, said he'd be excited if the Bears draft him #1 overall, 55 days until day one of the NFL draft. As for the players who worked out at the Combine on Friday, got to look at defensive backs and tight ends. Ryan, I'll start with you. Who was the biggest riser on Friday?
Rick, we talked a lot about this young man in the fall, the cornerback out of Clemson. We talked about him over the summer, in fact. Nate Wiggins, 173 is what he weighs. He doesn't play like he's 173. He tackled much better this year than he had in previous years. We knew he could cover, and he ran sub 4.3. And when you watch his tape, he plays nearly that fast. He was hobbled with a groin injury. I don't think it's anything long-term. But in terms of, here he is running here, he was moving, and we saw this together, and it felt like it was an effortless 4.29, which is not something you say very often. Does this change your opinion? For me, he's cornerback 3 behind Terrion Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell, but it's going to be a situation where all three of those guys could be gone by 16 or 17 picks into the first round.
Yeah, the only thing I'm concerned with him is the weight, and we had this discussion about Emmanuel Forbes last year, and he came in at 166 pounds. So he was a very good football player at Mississippi State, had a lot of ball production. He was willing in run support as well, and he was a ball hawk and can play man coverage like Wiggins can. But his rookie season, he struggled versus more physical receivers at the NFL level. So I know some teams are going to be concerned about that weight, and they may reflect back to Nate Wiggins or to Emmanuel Forbes and what he did last year as a rookie.
Who was your winner?
My winner was Quinyon Mitchell, the corner out of Michigan State, or out of Toledo. And why I say that, he's just been ascending through this whole process. You saw him against MAC competition, unique ball skills, good size. He ended up running a 4.33. Very smooth athlete when you see him running down the chute here, and strong finishing speed. The one thing that analytics told us when we were evaluating corners is that flying 20, from the 20 to the 40, that has to be the fastest part of the time for a corner to have success in the NFL. He went on to have a great Senior Bowl, was by far the best corner down at the Senior Bowl. Watching him in drills tonight and also watching him run, he may be cornerback 1. I know he's your corner 1, and he may have solidified that at this workout today.
Shouts to the good people in Toledo, Ohio. As for a prospect who didn't match your expectations, Rick, who's a player who's got some work left to do?
Kalen King for me. I remember in summer we do our summer scouting series on With the First Pick podcast, and we had him as a potential first rounder. You go back and watch him against Marvin Harrison Jr. this year, it wasn't very pretty. He went down to the Senior Bowl. We were wondering if something was wrong with him, if he was injured, or he got run by receivers, and then that was verified. He ended up running a 4.61 at the Combine today. So he was a guy that was ascending as a first-round pick before the season started. I'm not so sure he's not going to last until Saturday, till the 4th or 5th round.
And the thing is, and we talked about this last year, we talked about it a lot in the fall once he got to the NFL. Brian Branch ran a 4.58 last year. The nickelback out of Alabama went to the Detroit Lions in the second round. This feels different than that. That 4.58 is not the same as this 4.61 from Kalen King, right?
No. Well, Brian Branch was a very good football player, had very good tape. This guy ran slow, and he had poor tape this year.
And a guy who actually played fast, who ended up being a faller for me, and hopefully he can turn things around in the coming 55 days, is Cam Kitchens, the safety out of Miami. I thought he played fast. I thought he played with an edge. He came downhill. Rick's like to say a hair on fire type player. But he got to the 40, and he only eked out a 4.65, which was the slowest unofficial time of all the safeties. And that's not what you want to have at the top of the resume as you head into the pre-draft process or work your way through the pre-draft process. Again, I like the way he played center field at the U. I loved his ability to come downhill and tackle. He showed some range sideline to sideline. But the 4.65 tells me that could be exposed to the next level. And Rick, does that mean, does he have to come close to the line of scrimmage? How do you sort that out?
Yeah, that'll be, will teams go back and discuss. And we took a kid from Michigan, not until the 7th round, Josh Metellus, who didn't run fast but was a very good football player. Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator in Minnesota, found a role for him. Same player we took was Javon Curse out of Clemson a couple years ago, who ends up playing very well in that hybrid type safety, linebacker type role. So a lot of these teams that like him as a football player may not put him back there in center field because of the speed the receivers have down the field, but they could find a hybrid type role for him because he's such a good football player.